Welcome to this week's Who the Folk podcast. I'm Lonnie Goldsmith, the editor of TC Jewfolk. This week I talk with Madalina Kelner, a recent graduate of the University of Minnesota-Duluth and an artist who will be presenting her first postgraduate gallery show, Behind the Veil, later this month at the Homewood Studio in North Minneapolis. We talk about the strangest senior year ever, what her plans for the future are, and how Behind the Veil came together on this week's Who the Folk podcast. Madalina Kelner, welcome to this week's Who the Folk podcast. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. Nice to see you through the internet.
That's right. I don't ever want to get used to doing these in person. I had very rarely recorded with any guest over the over the phone or over the internet. I usually do these in person, and I'm really looking forward to getting back to doing that again because it would be much more interesting to talk to you in person. And especially one of the reasons we're talking to you is because you are an artist. And
well, yeah, and you can always talk to me in person if you'd like. If you come to the gallery, Meet the Artist on Sunday, June 28th, you could actually meet me outside the building. I'll be there with the mask on, social distancing.
Well, that was a great segue. You launched right into it.
I don't waste time.
You do not waste time. So talk to me about, okay, so you're going to be, since you went there, let's go right there. You're going to be at the Homewood Studios gallery. Where is that?
Homewood Studios is located a half block northwest of the former Knesset Israel Synagogue and a half block east of the former Gemilah Chesed Synagogue. And the address, would you like to have that as well?
That would be good to have, yeah.
2400 Plymouth Avenue North. And there's also rain date, July 2nd, Thursday.
All right. So is this your first gallery exhibition?
Publicly, yes. I've had gallery exhibitions before in high school. There were also wonderful opportunities that I had from the Karen Orr. There was a gallery exhibition also within the Jewish Community Center. And
Sure.
They actually had all the artwork up on the walls, and it was really amazing experience for me.
And we have the TC Jewfolk offices are in the JCC, so I do always enjoy when the Karen Orr winners get announced. There's really fabulous artwork to look at in the lobby when they hang up all the winners from the photo exhibits, the photo winners each year. So, talk a little bit about what Behind the Veil is and how this how this opportunity came together to have this exhibition.
One more thing, going back to the galleries, I want to answer. I also had the opportunity to have my artwork in galleries at Maccabi Arts Fest, which was an incredible opportunity for me to go meet artists from all around the U.S. and create art with them, and then have it up on the walls at the end of the event.
And the Maccabi Arts Fest, for people who don't know, it's usually associated with the JCC Maccabi Games,
Correct.
the 5-day long sort of Jewish Youth Olympiad. So that's for people who don't know. It's great that they have the arts component to it as well.
Absolutely, it's life-changing because there's competition also within arts. You can have photography, there's dance, there's music, there's even comedy, which I did one year. So it's really nice to feel included because at different schools and whatnot, sometimes a large amount of the funding goes not to the arts, and so it makes me feel extra special when there's a sports-based event that was based on sports, also including the arts, with such love and care.
And you went to an arts high school, at least. You went to Perpich. So you at least went to a school that very much respected the arts.
Absolutely. And I did that for a very clear reason of just being so involved with my, artistic side and wanting to hone in on that for sure. So Perpich and Maccabi Games were the first two outlets that I had experience with galleries. So at Perpich, my senior year, I had a retrospective, and that was really nice. I was able to paint the wall whatever color I wanted to and display all of my artwork that I made of that senior year.
So had you always known that you wanted to be an artist? Obviously, going to a specialized high school for that would help. But at what point before that did you know that was something you wanted to do?
I think ever since I was young, I knew that I was somewhat artistic because I was adopted from Romania by my parents. I was 2.5 years old when I came home, and they kind of just let me lead because They didn't want me to just live under what they like. They said, okay, you want to try out the sport? You want to go to this gallery? You want to do this or that? And I would return to the things that I liked. And one of them were gallery events at the Minneapolis Institute of Art, MIA, and they
Yep.
had a monthly family day, and it would be open for everyone. They'd have scavenger hunts and crafts, and I absolutely loved that. My mom and I would always go with my dad as well, and it was just a really amazing experience, and I kept returning to like art kind of things. And then I started asking for art supplies, and I started drawing. And since kindergarten, I always just put so much effort into like the creative art assignments, things like that. And so I've just grown up artsy with it just piled into my hands.
So after Perpet, you went to the University of Minnesota-Duluth, where you just graduated, and as we talked about before we started recording, in the most awkward and possibly the worst senior year you could ever have.
Yeah, it wasn't great, but it somehow worked out. So like the online format for art works so super duper well and is so able to be done. But at the same time, during a pandemic, with moving from college to my home, not having that artistic space I'm used to and had for 4 years, because I dormed for 4 years straight, so I was very
Okay.
used to that. So having all of the background to an artistic major was really difficult. So art is super easy to teach online because you can implement art history, discuss, have people separate, make art, come back and discuss. You get your ESL, your emotional social learning, which is really great. I felt like I was getting the school that I paid for, I guess, more or less than on maybe another major where it was mostly online and you didn't get to have those connections. But the background was the toughest, like coming home and needing to paint in my garage, or coming home and needing to make sculptures in the living room and trying to find that appropriate space. Luckily, I was a graphic designer, so a lot of it was graphic work, but I also have a fine arts focus with that. So I was also in an elementary education class, and we had to make sculptures and all these kind of crazy art projects. So that was difficult. It's really hard to find the right space. With learning disabilities, it was really hard to take things in, on an online platform. So I worked around it. I was blessed with the most amazing and understanding teachers. I was emailing them like 5 times a day, like, where do I find this? What am I doing? Oh my gosh. So yeah, it all worked out in the end, but it was very, very difficult.
And I'm sure very stressful too. Try to, you're working towards finishing up your degree, but everything is sort of in flux, and you're trying to figure out a whole new way of doing things.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about the gallery exhibition that's coming up later this month, Behind the Veil.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about what the inspiration was behind it.
So it all started with a photography portfolio class. We were required to take 16 or so photos that had an overarching idea. So they could be photos of like specific type of trees and why, and you have to have an artistic statement behind it, and you have to have a conceptual idea behind it. You could take pictures of different people that represent different things and have your reasoning behind that. And so as a person myself who felt just completely different, I guess, going into a college setting, I felt like I had to justify myself a lot more, just making a whole lot more new friends, new teachers, people having those kind of adult expectations put onto me, and me not being able to say meet those expectations in a normal way. Having to justify myself was really difficult. So I was lucky enough that UMD has a really good disability resources office, and so I
Mm.
met with them, was able to work with my teachers and whatnot. And so I don't know, I just felt like there was sometimes a veil between me and the rest of society. And as I made new friends that also were part of these kind of marginalized groups, I have a friend who's deafblind, I have a friend who's got depression, I've got a friend from low income family. I started to kind of notice this trend of a lot of people in college coming to college from their families, maybe having been understood before, needing to justify themselves to this whole new realm of woke young people, if you get my drift. So
Sure.
And also the adults that are teachers that are from like a completely different, decade, a completely different time. They maybe have been teaching for 20 years and they don't understand what these new students are all about, needing to, justify every single, different ability they might have. So feeling like constantly needing to justify myself or seeing my friends do the same, I thought that this was the perfect timing to kind of capture that. And so I thought of something I've always wanted to do, which was work with studio lighting, and I've never gotten the chance to do that. And I take pictures of fish, specifically betta fish, and I always thought they looked like pretty little curtains in water. And so I was like, well, what's the way this can be translated? Because I was almost thinking of doing fish. And then I was like,
Okay.
well, what about fabric? Well, what about hands in fabric? Well, fabric acts as a veil, and it just kind of tumbled into this idea of this elusive veil that I kept feeling, in this new environment, and my friends kept feeling this new environment being translated into a tangible item, which is, I think, very difficult when you think about it. How do you visualize the veil that exists between these marginalized groups and the rest of society? Put a veil on their hands, dunk their hands in water, put that behind some glass, put some lights on it, and there you go. It just became what it became, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. And every single one of my models were so happy and proud to be a part of it, and they're happy and proud to express who they are today and what they've accomplished so far in their lives. And it was really nice hearing that from them as I interviewed them and spoke to them about their experience after the shoot.
So one of the things that I think is really interesting on your website is that you sort of tell in a sentence the story of who they are and how they are part of the marginalized community that they're part
Correct.
of. And that's really it's incredible that you were able to get people to open up in this way.
Mm-hmm.
How were you able to do it? It's really I think it's very impressive and very cool art.
Some of it were really close friends of mine, and they were, just so excited for that opportunity. They were very welcoming to my idea because I talked to them about it when I was first thinking about the idea for the project. They were like, "Oh, I'll do it. I'll do it for you. That sounds like cool." And other times I would see someone in a hallway and they would look able-bodied, they would look neurotypical, they would look like some, very normal person, unassuming of being a part of a marginalized group. And I just asked them, hey, do you identify with any marginalized groups? And about half of my models were just people I stopped in the hallways, and they ended up saying yes. And I told them a little bit about my project. I tried to stay, incredibly humble in their presence and see how willing they were to open up to me and if they wanted to be part of my project. And mostly, I would say 99% of the people I asked were totally for it because it's just their hands. There's not exactly like a face or an identity to each photograph. And I like that because then if you're someone who's deaf or if you're someone who has depression, so are these hands. These hands have depression and they could have been yours very easily. So I think hands are experiential parts of your body. They touch everything, they write everything, they communicate everything, and they're even used in a beautiful language, American Sign Language. So they're incredibly important parts of the body that convey so much information to the rest of the world. Yet the identity of you compared to your hands, there's almost none. And it's so easy to relate a hand to your own hand, I think.
I think so too. That I get that. It's great. It's really cool. How did you do on the assignment?
I did fantastic on the assignment.
I would hope so.
The teacher loved the images. I got a good grade, and more importantly, I was actually offered an opportunity to be in a gallery exhibition called Through the Lens at the University of Minnesota, and it was kind of featuring the senior designs from specific classes. So this photography teacher had enough space to feature 3 or 4 artists in her section of the gallery, and I was one of them, and 4 of my images were featured in
That
kind of suite.
that's amazing.
In addition, there is an opportunity given to students every single year. It is called the Art and Design Student Exhibition, where students are allowed to submit 4 pieces of artwork to the Tweed Art Museum that is juried by guest jurors that come in every single year. This year it was a group of designers and I believe a photographer. I'm not quite sure, don't quote me on that, but for sure a large group of the jurors were designers. And you can submit ceramics, you can submit paintings, prints, photography, so on. And I submitted suites of my Behind the Veil project. So a suite is a compilation or like a triptych of 3 images, and I
Okay.
submitted 2 of those. And one of them got in, and I got a staff choice award. So if I was still present, and if everyone was still present at the gallery opening, my artwork would have been purchased to be put on the walls of either the school or in a staff's office space. So that's really cool. And there was a very nice generous award that came with that. And also, just the recognition alone was super important to me because it made me confident enough to say okay to this gallery offer and feel like this project is something that people also want in their lives. I'm offering prints. I'm going to be selling the 22 by 19-inch prints, and I will also be selling like smaller 8 by 10 prints as well. And there will perhaps be a poster also available of all of the images.
That's really cool. That's great. So, are you a photographer? Is that what you're going to do with your art, or are there other forms of art that you're also interested in?
I'm interested in photography as a very, very, very serious hobby, I guess. I came into school having owned my camera for like maybe 3 or 4 years, and I just loved taking photos. I did a lot of street photography, and I came into school, and my advisor actually vouched for me, saying, "Hey, this student is able to actually just take one of your studio portfolio classes. I feel like she doesn't need the photo 1 class in order to take this class." And the teacher said, "Okay." So
Wow.
I was really excited about that, and that already made me feel like very official and very top notch, I guess, as a photographer. But I wouldn't say it's something that I'd want to do professionally. But it's also something that I consider just a hobby. But having all of these experiences in college, I would love to perhaps pursue professionally. And because of that, I don't know, these two there I've been doing 2 projects. One is the Behind the Veil. There's another one called Tenderness. We could talk about that later. Um, but they make me feel like this is perhaps something that maybe I should continue doing, because with both photography projects I've been able to convey like a very serious message in a very beautiful way that I think a lot of people appreciate. I mean, I got a staff choice award. Someone wanted that. So makes me feel really special. But graphic design for sure is like my outlet, and what I've studied for my 4 years. It'll probably be something that I apply for. But I really love having the photography as kind of a back pocket experience to also pop out and say, I also do photography if you
It,
need that. So
that's so. You mentioned Tenderness. What was that project?
So Tenderness is another project. It's on my website. It's madalinak.com/photography. It is the forefront project on my website right now under the photography link. And it is about how pain affects the human body and what it looks like by using close-up photos of cacti, and also by using very beautiful studio lit photos of semi-nude or nude models that are kind of displaying the specific body part that is affected by specific types of chronic pain, from say arthritis to scoliosis.
Okay. And I'm looking through it, and obviously this is a audio medium, so people should just go to your website and see it. The pictures are really, it's really quite cool. So I would hearken to say you're this is maybe more than just sort of a hobby for you potentially. I
It
think
got
you're pretty.
really serious in college.
I think you're pretty good at this photo
Thank
thing.
you. So this Tenderness project, it's a project I'm working on making into a tangible form for people to perhaps purchase, that expresses the uh, seriousness and understanding how pain affects people. So we'll say that little tidbit. But now you know more.
How as a new graduate, how much pressure do you feel to sort of start looking for that first quote unquote real job, and how, or do you plan on you know finding different things to photograph and
Mhm.
maybe rolling with the gallery opportunities a little bit more first?
Well, that's a really fantastic question because I've been asking this myself for the past few weeks, and honestly, the gallery opportunity, depending on where this first one takes me, it's really uncertain what might happen. I'm always up for job opportunities. I feel kind of very confident in my ability to perform as a professional worker in the professional world. I feel like I've got enough education under my belt, and I feel very able as a professional worker to take that on and also have these projects going on the side. So if tenderness, whenever that starts rolling, I have an editor right now whose computer broke, so I'm not able to
Oh
continue
no.
with that project. I know, but also there's really no rush because luckily enough, Behind the Veil kind of took root in a gallery, and that's able to keep me busy until tenderness. I can start working on that again. So it was actually a really nice time for that to slide in. So being able to juggle, I think, these personal projects, where tenderness might take me, where Behind the Veil might take me, I think being able to grasp those and a professional job is something I'm very capable of doing and very excited to do, honestly. I've got a job lined up for the summer. It's about 8 weeks of a summer camp called Southwest Super Summer Program. If any of you in the Jewish community know Dave Premack, he's fantastic. He is my boss. And if you're listening to this, hi, Dave. Uh, so it's just a fantastic opportunity for kids to learn, and I'm excited about doing that. So while I'm doing that, maybe juggling a little bit of the tenderness, I will find something to do professionally as a graphic designer.
Well, excellent. Well, if any of the first two exhibits that you have on your website are if they're just a prelude to what's next, there's some very cool things in your future. So we
Thank
certainly wish you the best of luck. Last couple questions, and we
you.
will let you get on with your day. What is your favorite Jewish food?
My favorite Jewish food has to be those bow tie noodles with the it's called kasha. I just love kasha. I could eat
Okay.
kasha every day, all day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I just think it's an incredibly appropriate, like bland but tantalizing food at the same time. And I love it.
So you're saying it's the perfect Ashkenazi Jewish food?
It really is. I love it so much. And Bedouin tea.
Bedouin tea. Okay, excellent. And what is your favorite Jewish holiday?
My favorite Jewish holiday would have to be, oh my gosh, it just Sukkot. My favorite Jewish holiday is Sukkot because it reminds everybody what's outdoors. The setting, the background of it is outdoors. A lot of the important sacred symbols that are involved with Sukkot are of plant matter and fruits, and I think that's incredibly important. And remembering what life used to be like and enacting that by going out in your sukkah and having dinner there, perhaps sleeping there if you feel comfortable in your neighborhood doing so, I think is just fantastic because it really lets you relive a truth and history that took place. And I love that.
Well, excellent. Well, Madalina Kelner, thank you for joining us. The Behind the Veil exhibition, there is a Zoom opening on Thursday, June 25th, a Meet the Artist event on Sunday, June 28th. We look forward to seeing what you have cooking up after this. Best of luck to you.
Thank you. And you can view my website for updates every Wednesday.
All right, check her website every Wednesday, MadalinaK.com. The Who the Folk podcast is part of the Jew Folk Podcast Network, a product of Jew Folk Inc. Please subscribe, rate, and review the show wherever you get your podcasts. If you have suggestions for other podcast guests, please email them to me at editor@tcjewfolk.com. For our other shows, check out tcjewfolk.com/podcast.